So welcome to Do Say Friday podcast. No, I am not Real Carter or Bleak. As you can see, this is a takeover. The guys have asked me, Dr. Jessica Clemens, aka Dr. Jess, to take over for Women's History Month. So I'm here today, not by myself because I could not imagine doing this by myself, but I'm here with two phenomenal women who I'm gonna brag on you guys a little bit, but you don't need much of an introduction. I'll start with Raven. She is a photographer, most known for her work with music, but literally does it all, has done it all, and would like to continue to do it all. So she's here to help facilitate this conversation with us today.
Yay, I'm excited.
And I also have Sue Tsai. She's a visual artist, most known for her fine art, her contemporary art. She's clearly done so much. Galleries all throughout the country and world. And also you have a recent collaboration with Puma.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yes.
Super excited.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So look, I kind of wanted to talk today about, since it is Women's History Month, and I just learned that it's not a new thing. I thought it was something that just came out a couple years ago.
What, history?
Come on,
Yes.
you know it's always like Black History Month is February, Women's History
Yeah.
Month is March, and then we don't matter for the other 10.
Right. So you knew this? Because I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
I mean, I feel like growing up in school, it was always brought up, like we would, you honor like historical women in March and all those things, and I just, it's always been a thing. I just think now with social media,
Yeah, so
everything that was already like a
Shift.
thing is like heightened.
Okay.
Because there's more visibility on it.
That explains it.
Yeah.
So I did some research. I was like, it's like confirmed, or it was created, I guess, officially in the 80s.
That's so funny that
It's
you had
crazy.
no
I had
idea.
no idea. We never celebrated it. So I don't know. So I wanted today to come on and talk with people who I identify like myself as like inspirations in terms of career and like doing things your own way, and really to kind of talk about like womanhood and our own experiences, but particularly through the lens of being women of color, right? Because for me, like having learned about it because of social media, I feel like women get kind of clumped into like one category of just this is what it means to be a woman, and I find like I'm not all girl power, flowers, and I love that, but like that's not helping things. So I'm curious about what your thoughts are in this month.
I guess I'll start. I mean, I do appreciate seeing women be taking a month to celebrate women, but it's very frustrating. I feel like even with work, it's always like people always ask me like, how does it feel to be a female photographer or a woman in photography?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, sometimes I'm not even thinking in that space, because I'm always like, okay, yes, it's in the front of my head as to being a woman, but it's like I'm a human being. So I operate, everything that encompasses me as a human being is who I am, and that's how I maneuver. Like I don't go like, oh my God, like there's a woman photographer versus a man. I know that it's something that's very prevalent and it is a thing, but for me that's not really how I operate. But I do feel like there are so many layers that come with being a woman and being a woman of color, your experience, where you grew up, your family, your class system. Like there's so many things that identify you and define you that I think we need a little bit more than a month to celebrate us and talk about us.
Absolutely. I would agree.
Right. No, so do I. And I think that like what you were saying, from our end, we don't identify as like just like we're just doing what we love and like we're not thinking of it. But the fact that so many outside people that's the first thing they kind of recognize just shows, I think, how underplayed women are, because they're surprised to see it. It's not like they're trying to pick out like, oh, you're a woman in this field. It's just like maybe there's not that many, so it's automatic. Like that's why they're kind of asking about it. It's more of an outside viewpoint more than us, because we're just doing what we love and we're not focused on, what I mean?
Because I feel like you see both ends, right? Like you can walk into a room and you can be like, wow, I'm the only woman in here.
Yeah.
Or you can walk into a photo pit and be like, wow, I'm the only woman in here and I'm surrounded by a bunch of old white guys with book bags. Or, but you can, and you also like walk into spaces and women are so excited that there's another woman doing it, right? Which is like brilliant, but then at the same time, that's not the only way I see things. But I guess maybe I'm I feel like I'm probably gonna look back on this and say that it's problematic for me because because I do feel like I want to do things for women. Like, it's very important for me to have a feminine gaze, like to be a woman and get to define what's sexy, what's beautiful, what's sporty in photography per se. So I do think it plays a role, but to tie back into the whole month thing, I just think that a month is not enough, and we shouldn't just be casted aside for that month.
Yeah.
Like, we should be celebrated and discussed all the time.
Absolutely.
I feel like that's how people feel about Valentine's Day too. So it's like,
yeah, it's a good
one
point.
day, you know what I mean?
Should not.
And it's not, because I think that's the thing. I think that's what ties into what you're saying about you discovering it now, is because now there are so many brands that use Women's Month to make money.
Absolutely.
So they've branded Women's Month versus like, I do think that women more and more are being celebrated and being represented and being recognized, but I think that it's become something that you can make money off
It's
of.
monetized.
Yeah, it's monetized. So it's like, that's why for you it's probably like, when was this
Where
month?
was this?
Because
we didn't celebrate it
and
at
we weren't
all.
like buying things during that month, or there weren't like special promotions for like, you know,
but
whatever was happening.
even those promotions are like targeting a stereotype. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's targeting all girls like pink, all girls want flowers. I like those things personally, so I buy it when it comes out, but I recognize how much of it is like a little bit of capitalism. And I guess I want to tie in also something you said, Sue, that made me also think about personally, like, I might not think of myself as a woman first. I may think of myself as like a Black woman or whatever, or a Black girl or Black person, but people have their identity of me. So how much of that, because I've had experiences as a doctor where I come in the room and they're like, oh, you're a woman, and then they'll even say from Alabama, and I'm like, that has nothing to do with any issues that I have, but it's a perception. And so I think that's even interesting also to kind of think about too.
Yeah, well, I think you have to be so hyper aware of not only like who you are, but how you're perceived.
Yeah.
And I think that finding that balance, like, in knowing that just because people perceive you one way, that doesn't mean that's your true self.
Yeah.
But also knowing, like, okay, there are things you're projecting out to people, and if you don't want to be perceived that way, then there might be some things you have to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like a good question. It's like, are you kind of molded by your identity? Is it molded by how people perceive you, and you kind of just like absorb that in, or is the perception there because of what you put out? You know what I mean? Like, before you said you identify more as a Black woman than a white woman. Is that more from like, do you think you just what you put out yourself, or you think how other people look at you and then you kind of identify with that more?
Well, I think it's like, I think when I walk into a room, you don't go, this is a white woman. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but I also think growing up, like, my mom is white and my dad is Black, and I was raised in a single parent home with my mom.
Oh.
And we're very, very, very close. And like, this is like my best friend. I have if you ask me who is the person in your life that has shaped you or influenced you, I'm always gonna say my mom is the number one woman. Like, every value, every belief I have is from her, either from a wrong thing or a right thing. And I think, like, growing up, she didn't raise me to not be aware of race and color, but she also never gave me I never experienced like racism or prejudice with my mom. It wasn't until I was like outside with other people, or even like other family members, which, like, she didn't have any relationships with them either. Like, she was like, growing up, like, she always talked about how, like, my grandma wasn't racist and my grandfather was very, very prejudiced and racist.
Wow.
And, like, my grandma was a doctor. She was a neurosurgeon.
Wow.
And
that's official.
Yeah, and
I'm
so
definitely not a neurosurgeon.
she would, like, she'd have all these kids come, like, oh my God, I'm losing my train of thought, but just like from Africa, from Europe, like, and stay at her house over the summer and like intern and stuff. And my grandfather would have a heart attack when he would see like Black kids in her house. And like, my mom, like me, was so close to her mom and was raised that way. Like, she was so disgusted by her father and by her family that at like 17 she left and moved to New York, because she grew up in Reading, Connecticut. So I, like, even though I was raised by a white woman, that wasn't, okay, you're a white girl. Like, you know, your dad is Black, half of my family is Black. So I feel like I identify as a woman of color, but at the same time, I'm very aware of like skin color and like I don't have the same issues that you might have had growing up, right? Or someone darker than you. And I feel like I'm aware of that. So I don't feel like it's respectful for me to walk in and say I'm a black woman, but I do feel like I'm a woman of color.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, I mean, because you have experiences that are still going to be different than what your mother would, or, you know, having, I'm assuming, the appearance of what is considered white. And,
and I'm sure when she was raising me, you see this white woman with this little girl that's like, I was a lot darker when I was little, unfortunately.
No sunlight.
No, now I'm like, but this little like mixed kid with curly hair, you know, but I just think it's important that you have to understand who you are.
Yeah.
Self-awareness is definitely super, super important.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think when you're younger, it's hard. Like, luckily, maybe you got it from like a younger age. You're self-aware, but like a lot of young women growing up, it takes a while. Like, I don't think I was like fully confident in like who I was and like everything until I was like late 20s, like 30s now.
Oh, I'm still figuring it.
Absolutely.
I'm fully still figuring it out. I think. I hope I'm not talking too much.
No.
But I think that like I always jokingly say like the only way for me to be like, for anyone I think to be successful and for America, the world, to be a happy place is you have to mind your business to an extent. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
if you're not hurting somebody, like the ideas of racism for me are so crazy because I can't understand how there are people in this world that just hate people for no reason.
Right.
Like, it's so disgusting. I was just in the cab, like sick to my stomach, reading like about how they're gonna fund this wall, and I was like, what is it about you and your heart?
Like physical traits.
Okay,
Like,
that you have,
that people cannot help.
you
Like,
can't do anything
But have
about
nothing to do with
and it
anything,
doesn't affect you
right?
at all, really.
And it's like it's such a concept that I can't grasp.
Right.
So it makes me so upset.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Because it's so completely, it's just psychotic almost on some
Yeah,
level.
it's like you
what
have
world
to
are
be like
living
you
in?
have to be like a psychopath to hate somebody off that. Like, I don't care. There is some degree of being a psycho to dislike somebody or to treat them different because of the color of the skin, their gender preference, their religion. It's like sick. But I also think that we're in a space now with social media where we're so hyper aware of it.
We are.
And we're trying to figure it out, but in a lot of ways I don't know if we're maneuvering the right way. So for me, it's like I just want people to always know, like, you have to some degree, like, just mind your business, like, mind yourself, you know? Don't really be worried about what the next person
I mean, it would definitely help because then we
is
wouldn't
doing.
be building walls to put out people who.
I feel like if you were minding your own business and you were happy within yourself, nothing else would bother you. You wouldn't have the time and energy to focus on all this like negative
But also,
and
like,
hurtful thing.
You wouldn't.
How crazy is it, right? You're building a wall, but you are a country that monetizes off of Cinco de Mayo. There's a Mexican restaurant on every corner of every single block.
And not to mention, in New York, I know when you look at the kitchens, like, who are the people that
Everything,
are creating, right?
construction,
Everything is all, like,
everything.
you know.
And I am fully for anyone that wants to do their best job, like, to do it. And Americans are fucking lazy. I don't know if I can curse on title. They're lazy. And I just think it's crazy. I think this whole situation is so insane.
But listen, okay, I want to ask, because when Sue, you said it was probably a little later when you kind of fully got comfortable with yourself. I guess I want to kind of go back to that in terms of just give us a little bit of like a flavor about what that means. 'Cause
Just, I don't know. I think growing up, so like my parents are Taiwanese. I didn't grow up around any other Asian kids. Like maybe two, but they're both like adopted into white families. So, and then Asian is like this weird minority where it's like they're called like the model minority, where it's like they don't really consider you a minority, but you're also like it's just like a weirdly weird gray area. And I felt like for the longest time I kind of never really felt where I fit in or being comfortable like where I was. And I think, you know, the older I got, like through college and then just, you know, getting out into the world more and like new friends and things like that, and not even just with ethnicity, but just as far as who I am as a person, I've definitely become way more comfortable with just who I am and like my values, and especially through my career and be able to just meet so many people. It's just like everything kind of contributes to my growth. And it definitely comes like for me like in your early 30s, like I'm like fully happy with who I am. I know who I am. I'm still growing and learning every day, but everything's like a learning process.
Yeah, no, I love.
Do you feel like it's easier for you to, like in painting, right? Do you feel like you found more of who you are, like, or your voice?
For sure. So when I was a little kid, I was the most like shy kid ever. Like I'm super introverted. I don't like to talk. Like, well, now I'm like better.
You're still pretty shy.
When I was like younger, I was so bad. My teachers used to have to like parent-teacher conference with my parents, like ask if there was something wrong, and like I just would not speak. And I think art has always kind of been my outlet and my therapy through everything. Like I dealt with a lot of anxiety, and art was always like my therapy. And it definitely has given me my platform to like kind of speak on my feelings through my own art in the way that I can do it, instead of like, you know, it's my own creative way of letting out my emotions. And I feel like when I'm going through something, I can literally pour it all onto the canvas, and then it's like all my emotions are there, and then I can kind of just like move on from it. Like it's like almost like it's coming out of my body,
like
and it's
release.
onto that. And then that's why I have such a hard time like letting my paintings go sometimes. Like
oh
selling
yes,
them,
I've heard about this.
That's always the thing. Everyone's like
I don't know if
they're
I'm
like
gonna
supposed to buy this for this and this amount, and I'm like I can't. Like it's literally not about the money sometimes. Like it's just that when I see a certain piece, I'm like that brings me back to a certain time in my life, and like I remember this is how I got through it. So you know what I mean? Like, they're my babies. So I have a hard time letting them go.
So everyone now who's listening knows that that's why, and maybe they can even use
They
that.
don't care.
They don't care. They still like Kevin. But I
Now they're probably gonna want it more, so you just
Even-
up
yes,
the price.
up there.
Just
Go
up the
ahead.
price.
So speaking of that, like I love to think about work. I think in my own life, I was a little bit of a late bloomer in the sense of like feeling like I could drive my own kind of course. Like, sure, in some ways, like being a black kid with parents from Detroit, growing up in the South, like my dad was in the military, we moved everywhere. Sure, like choosing to become a doctor, it's like, wow, this kid is writing their own course. And I was, but I wonder how much of that was like my family really pushing this concept of like, you don't want to live paycheck to paycheck, you want to have a profession. And so now it's interesting, like as a psychiatrist, I'm like doing a lot more with creative stuff, right? And I wonder for you all in your careers, like how much of yourself did you get to use to guide you to choose the type of work that you're doing? How much was it pushed on you, or were your parents kind of like off? Just curious about that.
My mom, so I feel like my mom always wanted me to have structure, right? So like I was like a straight A student in middle school. I was a straight A student in high school. I went to a high school for engineering. I thought I wanted to be like an engineer or an architect.
Wow.
Took a photography class. Was like, oh my God, this is something I really love, because I've always looked for something that was like instantaneous, like an instantaneous euphoric feeling. So I did like dance. It was too much. I did theater. It was like, eh. And then I did photography, and I was like, wow, instantly, like this makes me feel good. But still, I felt like I had to go to college, and I didn't want to take photography as a major. I went to NYU.
Well, like, why is that?
Because I feel like growing up, especially like in inner cities, you're told like you're not gonna waste your education on art. That's what you were told, right? You're not gonna like,
you guys can get major checks.
I know. I'm like, I'm making
so
way more money
debt,
than
right?
But it's like, it's this thought, right? You choose education or art, which is so crazy to me looking back, and why I'm like, it's so important for me to like figure out a way in my older age to teach kids, especially in inner cities, like how to bridge the gap, because everything I learned like with math and science and all those things has also played into like just things I do creatively. So then I went to college for 3 years, and I was like, this isn't really what I want to do. So I dropped out, took a year off. It was a whole story. And then I was working odd jobs, and I was still like doing photography on the side. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm doing photography on the side, and I'm making money. I'm making okay money, and if I dedicated more time to it, then I could probably make a lot of money. So why am I not? So my mom is always, at first I didn't think she was going to support it, but the one thing she's always taught me is like, two things are like money's disposable. If you can make it, it'll always come back. And it's like everything's gonna be fine. Like you're gonna figure it out.
That's
so I feel like
facts.
those two things were like, okay, Mom, like I'm not gonna go back to school and I'm gonna just do freelance photography full time, but like I have a plan. And she was like, all right, if you have a plan, like you've never failed at anything that you've put your mind to, so I fully
So
support
she didn't
you.
need anything else.
No,
knew
and
that
now
you
she
could
wants
do
to
it.
go on vacation once every 2 months. So I guess now she's like, let's go on vacation. I'm like, I gotta work.
I love it. But I also love the openness that your mother was able to pass on to you. And like, I don't even blame my parents for necessarily being like education, because their own backgrounds were one where, wasn't a lot of stability financially. So, but I'm at a point now where I also agree with like those things that your mother taught you about money. So I'm even thinking like, if I have kids one
But
day.
same, she was like, sorry to cut you
No,
off, I
you
hate
didn't.
that. But she didn't have stability either. So I think with our parents, when you don't have stability, that's the only thing you want for your child. But we also grew up seeing that they didn't have stability and they still made something very successful, whether it's us or, you didn't go hungry or those
right.
things.
Still did fine.
Yes. Yeah.
But keep going about your kids. I want to
No,
hear
but
about
that,
it.
I'm saying, I think about how much I would pass on to them. Like,
Do you think you'd push education?
right now, honestly, I don't know if I would, because the debt is really out of control, and I think there's definitely benefits to having a higher education, but it would almost be like either, like the track what was pushed on me was like, it's not just college, it's like, okay, pick a profession, because a college degree at some point won't be what it is, but like, I chose doctor because like that you can't take away. And I am able to do a lot with this, even though I'm in a lot of like medical school debt, but that's, that's a part of it, but I still,
But I think everyone has their own path. I mean, it's hard to be like, you know what I mean, just pick like you have to go this route or this route. I think we've all kind of like defined it ourselves, like, and kind of just figured it out.
What did you want to do before you were a painter or artist?
I'm super lucky. Both my parents are artists.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
like, everyone else in the family is like, it's super Asian, so it's like lawyers and doctors. And like I have it's more my dad, and my mom kind of just is like with it. But my mom's more like the crazy, like the financial person, like everything's about money. Like she's that like Asian mom that like everything like has to make money, or like she's like super frugal, and like just that they grew up super poor, so like money is really, really important to them. And my dad's like the artsy one that doesn't care about money. And so they were kind of like a perfect combination. So like in their world, like he made the art and she tried to figure out how to sell it.
Oh.
So I grew up in like a really creative, nurturing environment. I was like in the studio with them since I was like 2, you know what I mean? So
That's why you're so
Wow.
good.
So good.
That's why she's so good.
I was
I know,
never
I'm just like,
afraid to be
ah.
like, I'm doing art, but it was just never a career path in my mind, because I think when something's so, you're surrounded by so much, like that's not what you want to do anymore. You know what I mean? Like some people have like family businesses and like they grow up around it, so like they go something like completely opposite. And I got to a point where like, as much as I loved art and I was good at it, I was drawing, I was like doing a lot of illustrations when I was younger. I think school shaped more of my desire to like not want to do art, because you're shaped by like your peers' opinions and like what's cool and what's not. And art is never like a cool thing. Like when you're artsy, you're like weird. Like, you know what I mean? School, it's like everyone wants to be famous doing like sports or movies or things like that, and like art is not one of those things. And so it was like growing up, it was just something I did as a hobby. It was never like the main thing. So when I went to school, I still had no idea what I wanted to do. I went to Hofstra for marketing. I was like, this will kind of just be general, and I think my marketing's that like
It's like,
degree,
we'll figure it out.
Figure it out. But it actually worked out well for me, because most artists, like the personality you have when you're a creative is like you're not as well business minded as you are creative. So that's why artists have a lot of time. They have a hard time like turning their art into a business or being able to sell their works without the help of a dealer or a gallery, and they get taken advantage of so much. And there's definitely like, I feel like a shift now where we're kind of taking that power away from these big galleries and art dealers who are kind of, you know, taking advantage of a lot of artists. Granted, they help them also, but it's just like it's just not fair.
Well, it's like hard to, I think creatively it's like hard to put a number on your art. Like for me, like when I started being freelance, I was like, well, what am I worth? Like, what's your
Yeah.
worth? Like, and it's for anybody.
Even
it's for
like
you
with
doing-
psychiatry,
yeah,
they're like,
it's like,
I have to think about what my number will be for individual sessions.
Right.
What's my worth?
Yeah, like what's your worth, and it changes. Like it could change in a one-on-one versus you doing like a panel versus
Absolutely.
you being on TV, or like, you know, I might be doing like a birthday party for a friend's mom
Yeah.
versus like editorial for like a magazine. Like, so I felt like I had a very hard time maneuvering, tying it back into being a woman of color, asking for more money, which is why like I ended up having a really good friend of mine become my manager. And now there's no space, like now she can define it and I don't have to be I can just be the artist. And I don't feel bad asking for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it gives a little bit of a layer.
Yeah,
But you still are working with someone that you trust, which is different than giving it over to like an agency to now be responsible, especially like with the age of social media, and you can access people right away. They can see what your cool factor is with these like follower accounts that really don't mean anything, but they do have a little bit of like clout.
Yeah.
And you get to now do direct to consumer, which even makes me think about like hip hop and how like Hove is like spun the way that people even, you know, are responsible for their music. They're not just giving everything over, but now kind of creating
Control.
Yeah, like like you're still in control by having your friend kind of be that barrier.
And it's
you
like
know?
great to have another woman of color
Yeah.
tell people what you're worth. Like, I just think you feel like you have to be the hardest. I feel like I gotta walk into a room, I have to be the hardest working person in that room, and there's no space for me to not be the hardest working woman in that room because they'll replace me. That's just the mentality
Wow.
like I wake up with. Like, I can do this, but if I'm working with 5 other people, I still want to be the hardest working person because I feel like.
Do you think that's because you see yourself as a woman of color? Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think even just first as a woman,
As
and
a
then
woman.
the
Do you
layer
feel
of
like that? Layers.
Well, I feel like the biggest layer for me is the woman of color, and then
Yes.
being a woman. Because I feel like if I walked in and I was like blonde, blue eyes, came from
Baby,
like,
I'm gonna work that room.
yeah, I'm just
gonna
like, okay,
work
like
that
there's a little
room.
bit more of a space. Like there is a spectrum of space. There's like a spectrum of privilege, right?
Absolutely.
So at the highest level, you're like a white male, and I feel like at the lowest level, you're a black woman.
Absolutely.
That's the spectrum of it. I wouldn't say high and low, but you know what I'm saying, like from left to right. And
Although
so,
I actually feel a little bit different I actually think black men have it harder than black women. And the reason is I think that people don't expect me to be a threat when I'm in the room. So I get to maneuver in a little bit of a way where before you know it, I'm like, and they're like, damn, when did she decide that she's gonna start doing
Underestimated.
Yeah, but I think I think society feels threatened and intimidated by black men, and like even in medicine, like in my class where I'm training, I'm not gonna even broadcast that right now because it's a little bad, but where I'm training for psychiatry, there's no black men in the entire department or my residency program. So for me, it's like they're definitely.
that's like really
It's interesting.
It's kind of interesting to hear your perspective because I would have, if you would have asked me, I would have sworn you would have said the other way around.
I feel the other way because I see a lot of we still don't have a lot of black women in these fields, but I see more than, and then when I see the black man, I feel like the ones that are there, they've almost given up a little bit of what like I feel like I saw in my father, which is like a black man. You know, he has a mustache. He's like, you know, listening to his music still. Like my dad was ranked pretty highly in the military, so he obviously was professional, but he still was like a black man. And I see the ones that are there, they feel like they've kind of
like deflated.
deflated and kind of had to be this to make people feel less intimidated. So I guess that's what I just wanted to say that because you gave me an opportunity to say that out loud. But that's how I feel. But I agree that there is a range.
But I also think in that range for me too, it's like I'm a kid. I grew up in the Bronx my whole life. I still live in the Bronx. And like, especially for me with art, and I hope no one that hears this takes this the wrong way, but like, when I think of self-made, I was always behind like in being able to buy like equipment or technology or those things. Like it wasn't a priority in my house. It wasn't something we could afford till a later age. So I think sometimes we don't talk about class enough either in these spaces. So like if you could be any race, and if you were wealthier, you might have access to things that I didn't have access to either, you know? So that's where I think it comes into play, the whole layers thing.
You have a more expensive profession.
Yeah, oh my God.
I was just buying like a canvas and paint.
Like the cheapest camera that's kind of started off, it was like $700, and it's like changing every year. Like my camera body alone is like $3,500, and like lenses are like $2,000, $1,800, $3,000. It's like, it's not cheap, and it's always changing. And like film, it costs to develop a roll of film is like $20
to actually get the film. To
buy the film is like $30, and then to develop it, it's like another $20. A roll has 10 to 12 photos. So regardless, like photography is a really expensive job and a really expensive hobby. And it's like, you know, people ask me every single day, like, well, I'm starting out, like, what camera should I get? And I'm like, get what you can afford. Yeah. If you can afford a point and shoot, then shoot on your point and shoot forever. If you can afford a $300 camera, then make it work, because it's about your vision. It's like, people want to know what you're seeing. They want to know your perspective and how you can tell your story. And in the beginning, I was so caught up on like being able to afford things that I felt like it was really hindering me, because I was like, I don't have a full frame camera. Like when I started photography, I didn't have a full frame camera. You guys probably don't even.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's basically like the people that photographers that are listening will kind of feel me out. So, you know, you have all these people walking around with full frame like 5Ds, and I'm here with like a 70D. Like, like is my photo less? Is it less clear? Is it less cool because it's not expensive?
They love you for your vision.
Obviously.
Now, but that's something you don't feel when you're an artist. Like, you know what I'm saying? If it's for you, I don't know, like.
For
with
me,
paint,
it was like the quality of paint. When my first paints were like, they're called basics, and they're like the cheap ones that you can use for like classrooms and like students and like that. And then I was able to create what, obviously what I have going on from that. But obviously, as you grow, you want to step up the quality, and you do see a difference. You know what I mean? Like, but you don't need it. And it's in the beginning, it's perfectly fine. And now that I've kind of grown into where I am as an artist, I use, the best quality paint I can get, because it's so valuable to me that I want the best possible kind of materials to best create what I envision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you have to invest in yourself, right?
You do.
So it's like,
but you also, it sounds like you also have to appreciate the hustle, like the process.
Yeah. And live within. You have to invest in yourself by living within your means. Like, invest in it, buy what you can afford. Like, and as you grow and you make more money, if you want to continue to invest in yourself, you can. And if you like,
part of your story.
It does.
It really makes who you are and who you become, and it makes you appreciative of your journey.
It does.
And I refuse to get rid of my cameras. I just keep them.
Keep them.
I just hold them as my little babies on my wall.
They are, because it actually, as we talk about this, it doesn't make me feel bad, like pity these, but I also think about the kids who have a lot of money, and like they don't have to experience what it's like to like really work hard to save up and get something. Like, I know this isn't the same what we're talking about, but I remember in high school saving up for Jordans, and like
same.
Literally just the concept of what that meant, and how many hours I had to work at my part. Like, that's all a part of the process. So then when I can buy things differently now, it just feels more like I get it.
Yeah, like
with your art.
I couldn't, like, someone asked me, I did like a Women's History Month like panel at Foot Locker.
Was it good?
It was good, but they were asking us, somebody in the audience was like, how do you become a sneakerhead? And in my head, I was like, I couldn't afford Jordans until I was like 17. I remember like buying myself the one, like a
and
pair
you probably
of ones.
couldn't really afford it. You just sacrificed for it at 17.
But also like, I couldn't. It's this concept. I just lost my train of thought. And I felt
keep
like
doing
it was
that.
So
I'm interrupting
you. Oh my God, what was I trying to get off?
Foot Locker, the panel, how do you become a sneakerhead?
What were you saying?
I was saying like how I saved up. I remember saving up my little money to get a pair of Jordans in high school.
I'm gonna get back to it. I can't.
Pop in when
maybe it's Seduce and like maybe I'm saying too fast, but I literally can't remember what I was gonna say. So you
no worries, pop in even if we're on something else. But you guys are both talking about just the process of becoming like where you are in your careers, and even as people listen to this, they might even be feeling like, oh, they've already got it, they're where they are, but you are sharing how it's a process, and you start out. It sounds like it's important just to create and start to fine tune what your
the craft is the most important part. Like,
yeah,
first and foremost, like people are so worried about kind of like the end game and what it looks like and kind of like the more showy stuff. But the craft is what kind of is going to keep you in the long run and kind of never being comfortable with where you're at. I've never stopped growing ever since like the first, even from kind of like the beginning, and I don't feel comfortable where I'm at either now. And I think it's being able to focus on your skill and the core of whatever it is that you love, that's going to really kind of keep you in the game for the long term instead of just being a fad.
Yeah. I'm like the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my whole life. Like
right
ever.
now?
Yeah, right now. Because I feel like I had this like crazy year, did OTR, like did Coachella, was like traveling the world, like definitely grew in like people knowing my work, knowing who I am. I felt like I grew as an artist, learning like who I was creatively because I was like working at the highest level every single day.
Yes.
Then you come off of tour and like you're like, okay, I'm figuring out how I define my work and who I am as an artist and like living up to the work I've already created, creating better work, like figuring out who I am. And I think like my boyfriend always says to me like, Raven, you have to feed your creativity. Like we spend a lot of time as human beings like on social media, like on gossip pages, watching trashy TV shows, and it's like I had to find a way to spend more time feeding like my creative, like good food, I guess you'd say. Like I kind of had to put my brain on a diet, and like I had to like, okay, I need to do more passion projects. I bought like a couple film cameras. I am like trying to push myself in a different space and be uncomfortable and like figure it out because I constantly have to challenge myself to kind of figure out like who I am as an artist, you know, because it's like photography is something I could do until the day I die. Like I could just be, if I wanted to start my own creative company, which like I do and I have these plans, I could do. But if I wanted to just do photography till I was like 100, I could do that too. So how do I continue to give myself like new goals and be better, you know? So I feel like I'm like so uncomfortable
but you're pushing
too.
because there's so much pressure. Like the more people that have their eyes on you or know your work or like are gonna define you by your work, you know, you feel like you have to continue to create, but you also want to create stuff that you really care about and that like I think define you.
It's definitely a balance. And then also another thing is like the more we're growing, we're also meeting and becoming friends with all these people who are like so inspiring. Like my circle has definitely like helped push me. It's kind of like I look at people around me and I'm like, I need to be doing more, you know what I mean? And that's also like a big part of like who you're around kind of like helps define like where you're going as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, I guess as you say that, I'm thinking about the listener who may feel like, you know, because you hear that a lot, like your circle, it really kind of helps to either push you, hold you back. Like you just need to be aware of that. And I think people think that they need to like look for a circle versus like doing your thing, focusing on that. And then, I mean, even here, I've experienced where now it's like you're saying, the circle starts to form and then you start to have that motivation come from that.
Well, like something that keeps me really grounded is that like I've been blessed enough to have the same core group of friends from
dope.
Like I was 5. Like
I have
it's
like one friend from back in the day.
I mean, it can be stressful too in that change in your life.
Mine was I moved a lot, and then I just got accustomed to like it was nice to know you. You will always be in my heart.
You're like
but
my friend Bianca. She could just move.
Like,
She
we're
could
done.
constantly move. But me, I'm like I want to hold every friend I've had since kindergarten. Like I want to put the throwback up. Like so, I've had the same core group of friends. All my friends, like my close friends, are not like in creative jobs. Like a lot of them are parents now. Like our lives are very, very different. Like I always think about like when Kanye said, "My friends show me pictures of their kids. All I could do is show them pictures of my cribs." Like it's just like
such a different world.
I'm like, you know, I want to buy a house and like I want to travel the world. I'm not thinking children or anything. I want to keep doing photo shoots and stuff. And like we're all in different spaces, but it keeps me grounded that sometimes they're not in that circle. And I think part of like being successful is just your core circle has to just love you and like nurture you and understand, like they have to understand your life, but they also don't need to necessarily be doing the same thing in your like that you're doing. Like they don't need to be in that space.
Right.
Like, and I think it provides a good outlet for me that I can step out of this world or step out of the industry or step off a photo shoot and go home and just kick it and just talk about life shit with like my friends that aren't necessarily like wanting to talk about photography or music or things like that.
It's just a piece.
Yeah, I think everyone, like when I say like circles and friendships, I mean everyone kind of plays a different role in your life, and that like core group of friends, like everyone's successful in their own way. So like being inspired isn't necessarily like in their career or like what they're doing, but like with their families. And like my best friend is like the most amazing mother, you know what I mean? And like I have two of my other friends are about to get married, so it's like, and then one's really successful in business and she's single. So like everyone has like really different kind of roles in how they inspire me or you, you know what I mean? And I think that's what kind of, it's what keeps you sane through all of like,
just like surround yourself with people that are like the best versions of themselves. Like
yes.
just don't
of themselves.
Like
yes.
don't like if your friends are like pushing to be the best at their career in their life, they're the best family members, siblings, the best spouses, like, and they're trying to be their best selves. I think that's successful. You can't be around people that don't want better for themselves because then that's just going to be problematic, and they're also going to not know how to deal with you wanting to be a better version of yourself.
Absolutely.
I have a hard time, like, because then I don't know, it's just, for me, it's hard to, like, separate myself from that. Like, sometimes you just want to help people, even though they don't want to help themselves, and it's like,
I mean, I think that's me, too. I feel like you, too. I'm sure.
No, I'm nodding. Well, I'm like, because I've gotten better at that, but it's probably just because I spend all my time talking to people as a psychiatrist, and I'm like, okay, let me try to work on these. But I think it comes from a good place. Like, how much of that is?
You just want to see because you see the good in people, and you want them to be the best that they can be, and it's like hard to see someone not seeing that for themselves, especially if you care about them.
Oh, it's like the hardest thing ever, but it's also like I've had it so many times in my life, and I've also been like, okay, but I can't care more than you care. Like, as much as I care, I can't care more than you care. I'm making myself, I'm just making myself sick, caring more than you care about your own life. Right. But I do have a question, like, being a psychiatrist, is it hard to, like, not be a psychiatrist all the time? Like, because if we were hanging out, I'd want you to diagnose me all the time. I'd be like, okay, so what, like, what's wrong with me?
You know, like, I think, so I'm still pretty junior in my career. I think for now, I identify myself a little bit more as like who I was before I went into medicine, as I started really late. So I'm answering your question, but I think it's something that will probably end up happening when I start having more years as a psychiatrist than is what I feel like is just Jess from Alabama, who was always smart and wanted to be a doctor. You know, I still identify with that. When it happens, you know, I hope I have the right people around me to kind of check me, like, don't be shrinking me, because my job isn't that, right? Like, there's a certain amount of openness that you would have with your friends that I have to work at getting from a patient when they're in front of me, or the patient is giving me that openness because they're with their psychiatrist. Yeah. You know, and so the last thing I want to do is be like that person around their friends.
I would love it.
You would love it?
Yeah. I think it depends on the situation, because you know how, like, we always go to the person for advice of, like, when you already know what their advice is going to be.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yes.
And I feel like with her, like, you're going to go to her, like, there's sometimes you just don't want to hear any of that. Like, you just want to vent. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it could be
you want to just vent. But, I mean, I'm the person that my friends vent to. So when I need to vent, I'm like, I start freaking out. Like, I still vent, but I'm already in my head like, well, this is not even the advice I would give myself, you know? And, like, if I could see you at a party and want to talk.
Oh, do you know how many times that happens
People
to
like,
me?
hey, Jess, so by the way, I've been feeling like...
Now, that's a hard part. Like, it happens to the point, like, actually, when I do podcasts with other people, I have to send, like, Christina's been amazing. She helps me out. She will help, like, facilitate letting them know this is not a therapy session. Like, I've had podcasts kind of just, like, literally fall into them telling me all their problems. And I'm kind of naturally interested, so then it becomes hard for me to just close it off. So I have to set boundaries. So one of the things I'm not trying to do at some point is be like always a psychiatrist, because then it kind of comes across like, oh, this person thinks they know everything, and we have ideas about illness, and dynamic is what they call like the relationships and like patterns that you see. And so I always think about that, but I'm also just like trying to enjoy my life too, you know?
I'm not gonna
basically-
corner
she's
you
basically
in a party and be like, hey, Jess, so.
It happens so much. It's really interesting. So it's to the point where I have to realize that people experience me back to what you were saying in the beginning, how people perceive me. So I may enter the room where I'm like, I'm Jessica, and I'm just here, you know, to meet and have fun.
Have a
and
good time.
People see me
But it
as.
can also be flattering that people are that trying to be that open with you, because it is. I'm sure it's hard for people to just like share their, innermost feelings and emotions with you. So
I think there's a
Absolutely.
level of like comfortability that like air that you have.
she does. She has a
Like
very
you just
open,
have, there's a like, it could be because you're a psychiatrist. Maybe you're a psychiatrist because of this.
I
but,
think
like,
it's because, yeah.
you
Yeah,
have,
it's your
there's like an
energy.
air about you that like, even if I don't know you, I want to like sit next to you and just start talking to you, which is
Aw.
like probably why when I first met you, I was like, oh my God, she's Dr. Jess. Like I gotta ask her one question.
No, but in all honesty, it's really like that's how I am. It's hard for me to turn it off. I'm less interested in trying to tell people about themselves or what to do, but just interested in, because the process is just allowing people to have room to talk about what they
Right.
feel
Yeah.
and think.
that's like 80% of
Because
like
most people aren't doing
they just
that.
don't have nowhere to get it out.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about how many times or who in your life, I bet on one hand you could count who in your life right now you could call up and they will be non-judgmental and just hear you out, and that might have been all you need. Like I can count on one hand who that is, who those people are, and who if I call they're gonna be like, I don't have
Yeah.
time for this. It's too much, you know? So I know that we need to wrap up soon, but I want to know, I guess, for you all, like, what is next in terms of your we can keep it general, like your vision for 2019. I've been using this term 20-shine-teen.
Oh, that's cute.
My girl
That's
Ebony
cute.
Janice kind of coined this as like 20-mind-teen, 20-grind-teen, whatever you want to say to kind of like get you excited.
It's
right there.
actually flying. We're already in April.
It
so that's-
is.
Right?
Crazy.
It's flying by. So what do you see for your year? Let the people
You wanna go
know.
first, Sue?
It could be specifics, visions.
Well, specifics. I'm just now closing out like the 3 big shows that I've had from the end of last year into this year, which was kind of a sum of all my artwork for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And also with the launch of my Puma line, I just launched my spring collection last week, and then I have another
Yes.
one
I can't
big
wait.
in August. So like now, like I'm so like I've been doing so much promo and like social stuff that like I think after like the mid-year, I kind of go back into my my dungeon, and I just like I've been on the road and just I'm like I have so much like creative energy that I had like kind of built in that I need to like get out, and I'll probably spend like the second half of my year just getting back to the most important part, which is creating the stuff that fuels all the other things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited.
Yeah,
I can't
I'm
wait
excited
to
to see
go
like
pick up my
after
Puma.
being sorry, Jess. I feel like this is never anything me cutting you off.
No. I said to in the
you-
email. Remember, I was like, y'all cut me off.
You having such a successful year, I'm like really interested to see like what your art looks like now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because
see, this is the pressure you were talking
no,
about.
it's like the pressure in the
Like,
sense
now I
that
gotta live up to
okay, you're always gonna be brilliant, right? You
Obviously.
could paint a little drop, and I'd be like, oh, put this in my house. But like if you said you pour so much of yourself into your art, and it seems like you've had such a positive
I know.
year.
It scares
Right.
me.
I want to see what the art looks like.
Yes.
Because I usually paint from a place of sadness.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I've only been able to create my most amazing works from being heartbroken. So it's gonna be
It might,
It's gonna be a challenge.
so
nothing
cool.
comes. I'm gonna need someone to break my heart. Or,
Someone come and break Sue's
May.
heart.
Your
I can
DMs
get
are gonna be
back
like,
to-
hey, you want to go on a date?
Yes.
And they're never gonna call
All
you
the
back.
F-boys are pulling up in the DMs to hurt,
sure.
break your heart,
Already
right?
there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's heartbreak. But that's going to be interesting, like you were saying, because, I mean,
Yeah, it might be a whole
personally, as a psychiatrist, I would not want you to have
no,
anyone
no.
come in your life and break your heart, but you're pointing out where you draw your
Yeah,
your
I mean that's
creativity
all
from.
about the growth. It's finding new sources of inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
and then like that's also a new chapter for me. It's just all my paintings and my artwork and my collections have been a reflection of who I am at that time. So these will be a reflection of me being happy and what's
So if you just paint dollar signs, I'm for it.
I'm
I'll
with it.
this whole
Just
year is
put
about the
mad
bag.
dollar signs, I'll buy it.
Right? 20, pour all the money down in my head right now, 19. What about for you?
So I think in the same space, I just want to do a lot of personal projects. We can pitch them later and stuff, but I just want to shoot. I don't feel like I shoot enough. To a flaw, sometimes I'm lazy, and I want to just get out there, like shoot models, shoot regular people, shoot musicians, shoot athletes. Like I just want to shoot.
Yeah.
And
Content is king.
and I want to see more of my stuff, like something tangible. I'd like to have a gallery. I'd like to have my idea of what I'd want a gallery to be, because I don't know. I think I have a lot of things I want to incorporate into it, music and light and like other things to create the experience. But like right now, I just want to shoot because I just don't feel like I have enough work. I don't have you just feel like you need, like I want to see more of my work. I want to tell more stories.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So if it's like on my Instagram and it's not necessarily like J&B, it might not get like, maybe it'll get like 100 likes, but.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
But
you're not doing it for the likes. You're doing it
I'm
for
doing it because I
that
want to
little
do
girl
it
that,
for me.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just think I also want to tell more stories in the Bronx too. I feel like
Yes.
living there my whole life, it's like I want to do more shoots there. I want to bring people there. I want to see it from my eye, like even if I'm just walking around. So we'll see.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's important because also like even having you all today is about just sharing what our experiences are, our particular, views of the world. And so your work getting to capture that helps other people to see themselves too. So I think that's like, I'm excited to
What
see
about
where
you?
it goes. For me, I graduate from residency literally in a couple months, so I'm excited. I do these talks called Be Well. I actually had June Ambrose on Friday. She was dropping so many gems. So I'm trying to decide if I'll ever release any of that content anywhere. So if June hears this, please let me know what I can release. But
Drop it, June.
Yes, but I still want to continue to do that community outreach where, again, it's like what we did today, just talk about our stories because they validate other people's experiences. So planning to do that, probably have a private practice, and then, keep seeing patients out in the world and helping people through their problems. So,
A little snap.
yes. So I guess, I don't know, do you all usually toast at the end of Do You Say? All right, we toast. All right.
Yeah.
So
Should I
do you
take
guys
my
want to do a
straw?
toast?
I didn't get a straw.
Take the straw. We'll take the straw out.
Do we just, what do we?
What do we want to toast to?
I'm really bad at toast.
To
Yeah.
womanhood? To,
You got to think of it, Jess.
oh my gosh, the pressure. I don't usually toast. You know who usually, and we both know him, all of us know him, Lenny usually does the best toast.
Yeah.
Oh, he can.
Right?
He can do
so
like
how
7.
about we toast to legends in the way
Okay.
that he would say it?
That
Legends.
He's gonna send you a long text message like, Jess, really? Legends? And he's so good at his grammar and his caps that you're gonna feel it.
This one's for you, Lenny. All right, wait, seriously, thank you to Rel Bleak for letting us take over the Do Say Friday
Thank
podcast.
you.
For Women's History Month, they've been doing a lot to really kind of keep giving us opportunities to have a platform. So let's cheers to being legends, all right?
Okay.
Being legends.
Yes, cheers.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies.
Start your weekend off with the Do Say Mafia.